What if I told you that today, you were meant to hold still, not by accident, not by laziness, but by design? What if your stillness right now is not a pause in your life, but the invisible hand that turns your entire reality? You see, there's a quiet alignment happening in this moment, one that most people rush past. They mistake it for fatigue, delay, or indecision. But what if this pause is actually the quantum point of power, the split second where the field waits for you to stop moving long enough to listen? If you're seeing this, you've been guided to it because the field is trying to synchronize with you. You've been trying to fix, force, and figure everything out, pushing timelines, chasing signs, and wondering why nothing clicks. But there's a hidden mechanism inside your day that determines whether you spiral or synchronize. It's not effort, and it's not luck. It's stillness. The same stillness that ancient mystics entered before receiving their revelations. The same stillness physicists glimpse in the observer effect, where the mere act of attention collapses potential into reality. You were meant to hold still today, so that your timeline could catch up to the vibration you've already set in motion. The world has trained you to move faster, think harder, and outwork uncertainty. But the field, the living intelligence that mirrors your consciousness, doesn't respond to your hustle. It responds to your harmony. It listens to your coherence, the invisible rhythm between your heartbeat and your attention. Every time you act from fear or hurry, you send chaotic ripples into that field. Every time you soften, breathe, and observe without judgment, you transmit a clear signal of trust. Stillness is that signal. Right now, you might feel like nothing is happening, but beneath the noise, probability is organizing itself around your state. Like particles aligning in a magnetic field, the events of your life are orienting toward the frequency of your stillness. You've mistaken silence for stagnation, but silence is where reality listens. This is not passive surrender, it's precision. The universe doesn't rush to those who chase, it aligns with those who pause. So ask yourself, what if this apparent delay, this day where you felt called to stop, is actually your initiation into mastery? The moment you stop chasing outcomes and begin encoding them through presence, the quantum field isn't outside of you, it's reading you. Every breath, every micro-shift in emotion, every subtle movement of awareness is data. And when you hold still, that data becomes coherent enough to transmit a new reality. In the next few moments, you'll see how the stillness you've been resisting is the same doorway the ancients guarded in temples and the physicists describe in equations. It's the point where breath meets awareness, where the observer turns chaos into form. And today, that observer is you. So take one slow inhale, not to calm down, but to tune in, because if you can hold still long enough to notice what's truly breathing you, you'll discover that the quiet isn't empty. It's full of answers waiting for your awareness to collapse them into existence. This is the day you stop running and start resonating. This is the moment the field recognizes you as the one who remembers. Reality doesn't move until you do, and it moves exactly the way you hold still. You wake up every morning inside a loop you didn't mean to build. It's familiar, predictable, even comforting at times, but beneath its surface, it's a closed circuit. The loop begins before your feet ever touch the ground. A single thought appears. What if today is like yesterday? And that thought triggers a cascade. Your breath shortens, your heart tightens, your body braces for what it assumes is coming. Without realizing it, you've just sent your first signal of the day to the field. Repetition. That's how the loop maintains itself. Trigger leads to breath, breath leads to meaning, meaning leads to action, and action produces evidence that seems to confirm the original thought. You wake with worry, breathe from tension, interpret every event through that filter, act from defense, and then point to the results as proof that your worry was justified. This is the invisible architecture of unconscious creation. You aren't merely reacting to life, you're broadcasting the same pattern into existence again and again. Reality doesn't have favorites, it mirrors. The quantum field simply returns coherence where coherence exists, and confusion where confusion reigns. When your inner signals are disordered, reality can't organize around you. It doesn't punish you, it just waits for clarity. But your mind, desperate for continuity, rushes to fill that waiting space with old stories. I'm behind. I can't rest. I need to push harder. The moment you believe those stories, the loop resets. Most people never see this mechanism because it operates at the speed of habit. Thought becomes breath in under a second, and breath becomes state before you can intervene. Your nervous system, trained by repetition, memorizes your history. It breathes yesterday into today. That's why transformation feels elusive. You're trying to change the picture while the projector keeps running the same film. But here's the quiet truth. The loop can't survive your awareness. The instant you witness its mechanics without judgment, the circuitry starts to lose power. Observation is disruption. The field doesn't respond to force, it responds to presence. When you see your own pattern clearly trigger breath, meaning, action, evidence, you interrupt its automatic renewal. You become the observer standing on the riverbank instead of the one swept in its current. Think about a moment recently when you reacted before realizing why. Maybe a message, a glance, or a silence from someone you care about. The body tightened before the mind found language for it. That tightening wasn't random. It was your old signal returning. In that instant, your breath encoded memory. You inhaled history and exhaled prediction. The mind labeled it intuition, but it was actually recognition, the body remembering what danger used to feel like and projecting it onto now. This is the perceptual crisis of modern consciousness. We're not perceiving life as it is, we're perceiving life as our nervous system remembers it. Every unobserved reaction becomes a time loop, replaying fragments of unprocessed emotion through new circumstances. You think you're meeting new people, facing new challenges, entering new seasons. But you're really encountering the same data, rearranged into slightly different patterns. The characters change, the energy remains identical. This is why you feel exhausted even when you're doing everything right. You're not tired from activity, you're tired from repetition. The mind insists on motion, but the soul longs for pause. It knows that true change happens not when you move differently, but when you see differently. That's why today's stillness matters. It's not a withdrawal from life, it's the interruption of the loop. When you hold still, even for a breath, you step outside the habitual feedback system. You stop feeding the machine with reactive energy. The field pauses with you, awaiting new instructions. This is the hidden gift of frustration, delay, or confusion. They're signals that your old programming no longer fits the new frequency trying to emerge. But most people interpret those pauses as failure. They rush to fill them with noise, decisions, distractions, anything to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty. Yet uncertainty is sacred. It's the crack in the pattern where light enters. The quantum field thrives in uncertainty because that's where infinite possibilities coexist. Stillness invites the field to reorganize around a new pattern, one that matches your present awareness rather than your remembered pain. If you look closely, every reality loop shares one blind spot. It assumes movement equals progress. But movement without awareness is orbit, not evolution. The ego celebrates its velocity while the soul wonders why the scenery never changes. You've been circling the same frequency, not because you're broken, but because you've forgotten how to pause long enough for the orbit to shift. To escape the loop, you must first see it, then you must stop feeding it. That doesn't mean resisting thought or emotion. It means becoming aware of how each breath translates them into code, how every inhale of fear becomes an exhale of evidence, and how every exhale of trust becomes an inhale of new probability. This is your turning point, the recognition that reality isn't punishing you, it's patterning you. And the pattern changes the moment you observe it without judgment. When you hold still, the mechanism reveals itself. When it reveals itself, it dissolves. Right now, the field around you is listening for your next breath. Will it be another echo of your past or the first note of a new symphony? The choice doesn't require effort, it requires stillness. Because in that stillness, you're no longer the subject of the loop. You are the one watching it unwind, the observer whose quiet attention reorganizes the universe itself. Imagine, for a moment, that reality behaves less like a machine and more like a mirror of music. Every emotion, thought, and breath you release is a tone. The universe doesn't respond to words, it responds to resonance. This is the essence of the observer effect, not as a cold scientific theory but as a living experience. When you look upon your life with anxious eyes, the field arranges itself in chaotic rhythms. When you look with coherence, with heart and breath aligned, the same field becomes symphonic. The observer effect means that awareness itself changes what it observes. Not because of magic, but because attention carries information. Your attention is not passive, it's participatory. Each moment you observe something with presence, you encode your frequency into it. The field then rearranges probabilities to match that encoded state. You've felt this, even if you couldn't name it, the way a room changes when peace walks in, or how a conversation softens when one person chooses to listen, instead of react. That shift is coherence transmitting through the quantum fabric. This isn't about believing in unseen forces. It's about remembering that you are one. The quantum field is not somewhere out there. It's the continuum that your awareness swims in. You exist within it like a ripple inside water. You never leave it. But your movement, your breath, emotion, and thought creates waves that echo across it. When those waves are disordered, they cancel each other out, producing static in your external world. Missed timing, miscommunication, emotional fatigue. When they're coherent, they amplify, and the universe begins to echo your rhythm back as synchronicity. Consider how this plays out in daily life. You rush into the day with scattered thoughts, checking notifications before you even exhale your first full breath. The field mirrors that fragmentation. Traffic slows, emails confuse, people misinterpret. The world seems uncooperative, but it's only reflecting your signal. Later, after a walk or a quiet moment, you notice everything feels smoother. The phone rings with good news. The person who ignored your message suddenly replies. You call it coincidence, but it's coherence. The external world didn't suddenly improve, you did. The observer effect is less about seeing particles rearrange in a lab, and more about realizing that your inner atmosphere determines what reality crystallizes around you. You are the measuring instrument, the tuning fork. The field listens to how you vibrate, not what you demand. It's never judging, only matching. If your inner tone is confusion, it mirrors confusion. If your tone is peace, it mirrors peace. And when your tone is stillness, the deep, alert, calm of a conscious observer, the field doesn't just mirror it, it reorganizes itself entirely. Here's why. Stillness carries the least interference. Every thought and emotion creates a waveform. The more emotional turbulence you carry, the more distortion you send into the field. But stillness, true, conscious stillness, is coherent silence. It's the blank page the field can write on. It's the moment the wave and particle reconcile, the mind and soul align, the breath and the body synchronize. That alignment isn't intellectual, it's somatic. You feel it as peace. Think back to times when time itself seemed to slow. A sunset that stopped your mind, the moment before someone you love said something life-changing, the second right before impact in an accident, or the instant of awe when you realized you were safe after fear. In those moments, thought paused, but awareness didn't vanish. You were fully present, awake, motionless, infinite. That was the observer state. In that state, the quantum field reconfigures itself because the measurement, the consciousness interacting with it, has changed. When you move through life unconsciously, you scatter energy across timelines. Your attention splinters between memories and expectations, but when you bring it all home into the breath, into still awareness, you collapse probability into presence. This collapse is not destruction, it's creation. The field no longer needs to guess what you are. It knows. Your coherence instructs it. The way tuning forks synchronize in a room. The moment one vibrates clearly enough, all others around it begin to hum at the same pitch. This is why a single human being in deep stillness can change the energy of a crowd. Why a calm leader can redirect chaos. Why one coherent breath can reset an entire day. Stillness isn't emptiness, it's precision. It's the difference between light scattered through fog and light focused into a laser. One illuminates vaguely, the other transforms matter. You may have noticed how your body mirrors this law. When you're anxious, your breath is shallow, your heartbeat irregular, your voice slightly trembling. You're out of coherence. When you're centered, everything stabilizes. Your breath deepens, your tone evens, your body relaxes. The same pattern happens at the quantum level. Disorder in the observer equals disorder in the observed. But when coherence returns to the observed follows suit. And so, today's stillness isn't punishment, it's recalibration. The universe is synchronizing around your quiet because silence carries the highest fidelity signal. In stillness, you're not losing momentum, you're clarifying frequency. Every pause, every deep breath, every gentle observation is a new instruction to the field. Align with this. You don't need equations to understand this. You can feel it right now. As you read, notice your breath. Notice how awareness subtly brightens when you stop chasing meaning and simply feel the moment. That brightness is coherence forming. That's the observer effect in action reality, noticing that you are noticing it. And when that happens, the field responds like a lover recognizing your gaze. Softly, instantly, faithfully. What emerges next, timing, opportunity, guidance, isn't coincidence. It's the universe aligning with the one who finally remembered to hold still, long before physics spoke of observation collapsing probability. The ancients told stories of balance, gateways, and sacred pauses. They didn't need the term quantum field. They called it ma'at, or the breath of Ra, or the space between two clouds where the sky remains untouched. Each name pointed to the same truth. The power of stillness is the bridge between heaven and earth. In Egypt, the goddess Ma'at embodied cosmic order. Her feather measured the heart of every soul entering the afterlife. It wasn't about judgment. It was about resonance. A heart weighed down by turmoil could not rise. Only a heart light enough to float beside her feather could cross the threshold into the next realm. That myth wasn't about death, it was about coherence. The Egyptians were teaching that the universe aligns itself with the one who has found inner balance. When you hold still, your heart becomes light. When you resist, it becomes heavy with turbulence. Every ancient culture described this passage differently, yet they were all describing the same principle of still awareness. The Buddhists called it anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. They discovered that observing the breath without control dissolved the illusion of separation. The act of noticing itself became liberation. They spoke of clouds passing and sky remaining, teaching that when you identify with the clouds, you suffer. But when you remember, you are the sky, you are free. The practice wasn't about escape, it was about remembering your vastness, even as the winds of thought drifted by. The Hebrew mystics spoke of ruach and neshama, breath and soul, two aspects of one current. They believed that each inhale drew divine essence into the body, and each exhale returned it as praise. The breath wasn't air, it was spirit in motion. They didn't breathe to survive. They breathed to align with the living rhythm of creation. Every inhalation was a covenant, every exhalation, a return. To them, the observer effect wasn't an experiment, it was prayer. In every temple, from Luxor to Lhasa, the same architecture appeared. Columns rising toward the light, corridors leading inward, a hidden chamber of silence at the center. These were not monuments to gods, they were maps of consciousness. The outer courtyard represented the world of motion. The inner sanctum represented stillness. To enter, one had to leave behind sound, thought, and effort. The initiate would pass through the hypostyle hall, where thousands of carved lotuses reached upward, symbols of awareness blooming from the mud of experience, and enter the inner chamber, where only silence spoke. That chamber mirrored the quiet space inside your own breath, the pause between inhale and exhale, where the divine presence is most easily felt. Even the Egyptians' daily rituals followed this rhythm. The priests of Ra would greet the sunrise in perfect stillness before uttering a single word. They believed that their silence prepared the sun to rise, that their inner coherence anchored cosmic order itself. In truth, they understood what modern humans have forgotten. Movement without inner balance distorts the world's rhythm, but stillness in harmony with truth sustains it. Across the desert, Buddhist monks discovered the same alchemy in the breath. Sitting beneath Bodhi trees or inside caves carved by centuries of devotion, they practiced the art of watching without doing. The inhale, the exhale, the gap between the sacred triad of creation. When a monk reached the state where the watcher and the watched dissolved into one, he entered what they called samadhi, the same unity physicists now glimpse in superposition. In that unity, reality ceases to resist. It simply responds. Notice how these traditions never asked followers to believe, they asked them to observe. They guided seekers not toward ideology, but toward direct experience of stillness. In that stillness, they found what every mystic ultimately discovers. The observer is not separate from creation. The breath of God, the pulse of the universe, and your own inhale are the same movement viewed from different sides of the mirror. This is why ancient scrolls described silence as a sacred language. The Egyptians said the gods spoke in silence before sound existed. The Buddhists said nirvana is not found through words but through the stilling of words. The Kabbalists believed the universe began not with explosion, but with contraction, a sacred withdrawal of divine energy to make space for creation. They called it tzimtzum, the first pause, the cosmic stillness from which all form emerged. Even creation itself began with holding still. Think of that. The first act of God was not motion, but stillness. Before light, before sound, there was quiet potential. And because you are made in that image, every time you hold still in awareness, You echo that original act. You become creation remembering its source. The ancients didn't separate the spiritual from the scientific. They saw both as reflections of the same intelligence. The temple, the breath, the tree, the sky, they were all diagrams of coherence. The lotus blooming from mud, the sun rising from darkness, the heart weighing against a feather, all metaphors for the same transformation, turbulence into harmony, effort into alignment, chaos into clarity. So when you pause today, when you resist the urge to fill the silence with noise, you're not being unproductive, you're reenacting a timeless ritual. You're stepping into the lineage of those who understood that stillness is not the absence of creation but the birthplace of it. In this ancient rhythm, breath is not just oxygen exchange, it's participation in the ongoing act of creation. Each inhale mirrors the universe's expansion. Each exhale mirrors its return. Between them lies the pause, the sacred chamber of stillness, where possibility waits to be shaped by your awareness. You've read this story before, even if you don't remember. It's inscribed in your body, in the rise and fall of your lungs, in the quiet between thoughts. The ancients built temples from stone to remind you of what was carved into your cells. You are the observer, the architect, and the altar, all at once. And when you stand perfectly still, the feather of Ma'at rests beside your heart. The sky clears, and the breath of the divine moves freely through you again. You don't need a temple or mantra to meet the divine. You only need this moment, this breath. The ancients built pyramids. You build presence. Let's begin there, where the air meets awareness. Sit or stand where you are, without changing anything yet. Notice your body. Feel its weight against the chair, the ground, the air surrounding it. You're not trying to relax or to perform calmness. You're simply allowing yourself to be here. The field doesn't require ceremony. It requires coherence. Now bring your attention to your breath. Not as an idea, but as a direct sensation. Feel the air touching the edge of your nostrils as you inhale. Notice the expansion in your chest, your ribs widening, your belly subtly rising. Then exhale not forcefully, but as though releasing a story that has finished telling itself. At the end of the exhale, notice the pause. That gap, silent, brief, effortless, is the doorway. The Egyptians called it the chamber of Ra. The Buddhists called it the gate of mindfulness. The mystics called it the still heart of God. Whatever you name it, feel it. The world stops there, not because it ends, but because it aligns. This is not breath control, it's breath awareness. You're not manipulating the body, you're listening to it. As the breath flows naturally, begin to notice where it feels restricted. Is there tension in your shoulders, chest, or abdomen? These are not problems to fix, they're messages. The body speaks in sensation. Each tightness is an unopened letter from your subconscious. Observe it gently, the way sunlight observes a leaf without judgment, without urgency. Simply seeing it allows it to unfold. Now, as you continue breathing, imagine a soft light accompanying each inhale. It doesn't have to be visible. Just feel its texture, cool, spacious, alive. Let it fill the lungs, then spread through your chest, your spine, your limbs. With each exhale, imagine releasing static, worry, comparison, anything that doesn't belong. You don't push it out. You simply let it return to neutrality. The field knows how to recycle energy. After a few rounds, bring awareness to your heart, not its emotions, but its rhythm. Feel its pulse beneath your palm if you can. This is your personal metronome of coherence. The universe measures time through motion. Your heart measures alignment through rhythm. Notice how, as your breathing steadies, your heartbeat steadies too. The body doesn't need convincing, it needs noticing. Awareness itself is medicine. Now, take this awareness into daily life. The practice doesn't end when meditation ends. It becomes micro-rituals scattered throughout your day. Before opening a message that might upset you, pause and take one coherent breath. Before entering a meeting, feel your feet touching the ground. When waiting in line, instead of reaching for distraction, find the gap between breaths and rest there. Each moment of awareness rewrites your neurological pattern, transforming reaction into response. Here's a simple framework. Notice, allow, breathe, encode. Notice the trigger, attention, thought, or sensation. Allow it to exist without commentary. Breathe into the body, letting awareness expand beyond the thought. Encode the new frequency by silently affirming, I am observing from stillness. Repeat this throughout the day. It's not about discipline, it's about remembering. You're teaching the nervous system that safety exists in stillness, not in control. Over time, your baseline changes. The breath deepens naturally. The heart synchronizes with slower rhythms. You begin radiating coherence even in chaos. Others feel it before you speak. Children calm near you. Conversations soften. The environment adjusts. The field recognizes the signature of still awareness. If emotions arise, grief, anger, impatience, don't suppress them. Let them move through the breath. Every emotion is energy seeking completion. You are not clearing darkness. You are integrating it. Think of yourself as a prism. The breath passes through, and the light refracts. Even sorrow becomes luminous when met with awareness. A brief safety note. If at any time the breath feels uncomfortable or dizzying, return to natural breathing. This isn't performance or endurance training. It's communion. The goal is not altered states but authentic states. Stay grounded in the body, anchored in gentleness. In moments of stillness, your perception widens. You may begin to sense the pulse of life around you, the hum of electronics, the rhythm of distant traffic, the subtle expansion of air after each exhale. Don't label it mystical. It's simply coherence revealing itself. The boundary between your breath and the world's breath starts to dissolve. And then something quiet happens. Thoughts slow, but awareness doesn't fade. The mind loosens its grip, yet clarity intensifies. You begin to sense that you're not breathing. The universe is breathing you. Each inhale feels like receiving guidance. Each exhale, like offering alignment. You're not producing the experience. You're remembering it. Carry this recognition into the simplest actions. When you drink water, notice its coolness entering your body as if the field itself were hydrating you. When you speak, let the words emerge from the same still center that guides your breath. When you walk, imagine the ground breathing back with every step. Life becomes a dialogue of presence. This is coherence as a lived reality. The observer and the observed moving in perfect rhythm. Not performance, not escape, just participation in the quiet intelligence of the universe. The more you practice, the less you seek proof. You become proof. Stillness isn't an absence of life. It's life unmasked, finally meeting itself through you. There comes a moment in every seeker's journey when awareness becomes unbearable, unless it transforms into creation. You've seen the loop. You've felt the breath repattern the field. Now the question arises, what will you do with it? Stillness is not the end of motion. It's the origin of conscious movement. This is the turning point, the shift from being shaped by life to shaping it through alignment. For years, you may have moved through the world as a reactor. Something happened, and you responded automatically. Someone withdrew love, and you tightened. Money dwindled, and you panicked. The loop repeated, dressed in new circumstances but pulsing with the same rhythm of survival. That was the old architecture. State story strategy. You felt fear, wrote a story about danger, then built a strategy to defend against it. But consciousness evolves through inversion. Creator energy begins with stillness, then story, then state. You hold still long enough to sense truth. You rewrite the narrative through that stillness, and the new state follows naturally. Let's bring this to life. Scene 1. Money. You check your balance, and an old pulse of anxiety rises. The mind rushes to solve more work, new opportunity, immediate repair. Stop. Observe the impulse before acting. Notice your breath. Notice the body's contraction. Instead of fighting the fear, you observe it as data information, echoing an old identity that equated worth with numbers. In that instant of stillness, the loop unravels. You whisper inwardly, I am the source, not the symptom. The energy shifts. Within days, an unexpected call arrives, or a new idea surfaces, not from panic but precision. That isn't coincidence, it's coherence reorganizing matter. The universe mirrors the clarity you established in stillness. Scene 2. Relationship. A loved one criticizes you. The body tenses, your tongue prepares its defense. Instead, you pause. You feel the inhale rise, the exhale fall, and you hold still between them. In that 0.3-second gap, you realize something profound. This isn't about right or wrong. It's about resonance. You recognize their words as waves, seeking equilibrium. You choose to remain the mountain rather than the echo. Your stillness reorganizes the conversation. Their tone softens. The conflict loses charge. You didn't suppress truth, you transmitted coherence. Scene 3. Leadership. You face a decision that could alter your path, career, team, community. The pressure builds for immediate action. You sense the familiar adrenaline rush masquerading as clarity. Instead of forcing direction, you return to breath, stillness first. You imagine yourself standing on a high plateau, watching clouds shift below. From that vantage point, you don't react to every swirl. You observe the larger weather system. Only when the internal sky clears do you move. The action that follows is minimal yet magnetic. People trust it. Circumstances align around it. That's what leadership looks like when born from coherence. Fewer words, deeper impact. These scenes are not imagination. They are physics. When you act from reaction, your field emits fragmented frequencies. When you act from stillness, the emission is unified. Unified fields attract order. That's why, when you choose stillness before speech, the room often calms. When you choose stillness before planning, solutions surface with uncanny ease. Creation loves coherence because coherence is efficient. Shifting from victim to creator isn't a personality change, it's a reorientation of causality. The victim believes external events determine internal states. The creator understands internal states organize external events. You've tested this unknowingly your whole life. When you woke peaceful, small annoyances couldn't touch you. When you woke anxious, everything reinforced that mood. The world didn't change. Your field did. Now, you begin applying this consciously. Before every decision, pause for one coherent breath. Ask not, what do I want to avoid, but what wants to emerge through me? That question redirects the flow from fear-based control to soul-based creation. You stop resisting outcomes and start collaborating with them. Notice how reality adjusts when you lead from this space. The more you operate from presence, the less you need to push. Meetings resolve faster. Relationships deepen. Finances stabilize. You spend less energy because you leak less energy. The field no longer has to compensate for your internal turbulence. It can finally align with your signal. This shift isn't grandiose. You don't need to manifest castles or lightning bolts to prove it. The true miracle is subtler. Peace under pressure, grace amid uncertainty, creativity in the face of delay. That's mastery, not controlling the storm, but becoming its calm center. There will be moments when the old reflex returns the urge to rush, defend, justify. Let that be part of the practice. When you notice yourself reacting, smile inwardly. You've just caught the loop mid-spin. By observing it, you reclaim authorship. One conscious breath turns victimhood into data, data into design. Gradually, your life becomes less about chasing outcomes and more about sculpting frequency. Every choice, every word, every silence encodes a pattern. Through repetition, you're constructing a new probability field around you. It's not imagination, it's participation. This is how creation truly happens, not through control, but through coherence. The field listens not to your words but to your vibration. When you hold still, when you breathe from trust instead of tension, the message is clear. I am ready to receive what aligns, not what repeats. The field responds accordingly, reorganizing timelines to match the vibration of that declaration. And in that recognition, something quietly profound occurs. You stop chasing life and realize that life has been chasing your awareness all along, waiting for you to become still enough to be found. Eventually, the breath, the science, and the practice lead you to a gentler truth. You were never trying to become divine, you were remembering you already were. The observer effect, the temples, the coherence, they're all metaphors pointing to one thing. Awareness itself is sacred, and awareness, when held in stillness, restores dignity to existence. Look around you now. The same consciousness that orchestrates galaxies is pulsing behind your eyes, listening through your heartbeat, perceiving itself through your thoughts. You call it me. The cosmos calls it recognition. When you sit in stillness, you're not disconnecting from the world, you're participating in its equilibrium. You become a stabilizing point in a universe that craves balance. Every act of stillness is public art. You may never see its ripple, but coherence never goes unnoticed. Someone sitting near you in a cafe might suddenly feel peace for no apparent reason. A friend might find courage after speaking with you, without knowing why. Children might laugh more freely in your presence. These aren't coincidences, they're resonance. The field moves through you as harmony moves through an instrument. Human dignity is remembering that you matter not because of what you achieve, but because of what you radiate. When you live from coherence, your presence itself becomes contribution. You stop measuring your worth in outcomes and start expressing it through awareness. The need to prove dissolves, replaced by the quiet knowing, I am part of the rhythm, and that is enough. This is where humility and power reconcile. True power doesn't dominate, it steadies. The sun doesn't force light upon the earth, it simply shines, and life organizes around it. The same applies to you. When you rest in stillness, you stop trying to convince others of your light. You become it. Leadership, then, becomes less about control and more about coherence, less about motion, more about meaning. Stillness does not mean withdrawal from action. It means returning to action's source. From this place, even small gestures carry immense weight. A word spoken with clarity can dissolve conflict. A single calm breath can shift collective energy. When you know this, you stop asking, "What can I do to change the world?" and begin asking, "How can I embody peace so that change happens through me?" Belonging to takes on new meaning. You realize you were never meant to fit into society's restless rhythm. You were meant to bring rhythm back to it. Every time you resist the noise and choose the pause, you remind humanity of its own heartbeat. That's what awakening truly is, not leaving the world behind, but bringing presence back into it. The philosopher Lao Tzu wrote, "The sage acts without doing, teaches without saying." He wasn't romanticizing passivity. He was describing coherence. The sage doesn't act from impulse. They act from stillness. Their movement arises from the same intelligence that moves the tides and turns the stars. In that space, everything becomes meaningful. Washing dishes, comforting a friend, speaking truth. The sacred hides inside the ordinary. There's a subtle freedom in this understanding. You no longer chase enlightenment as a future event. You discover it as a posture of being. The breath, the pause, the gap, they're not practices to add. They're reminders of what's always available. The field doesn't ask you to become more. It asks you to become clear. When you look at the world through this lens, compassion deepens. You see others not as asleep or wrong, but as waves remembering they are water. You stop arguing with appearances. You hold space for their unfolding. The way the sky holds storms without judgment, without fear. Stillness gives you this capacity. To love without attachment, to act without anxiety, to serve without depletion. And yet, you remain profoundly human. You still stumble, feel sadness, crave connection. But now you understand those emotions are not obstacles, they're invitations. Each one draws you back to awareness. Even heartbreak becomes a teacher, reminding you that love's real power isn't in possession, but in presence. So, as you move through the rest of your life, carry this truth lightly. Stillness is not an escape from the world. It's how the world heals itself through you. Every inhale says, "I belong here." Every exhale whispers, "I contribute peace." The field needs your unique frequency, not your perfection. You don't have to fix everything. You only have to stay coherent enough that your presence becomes medicine. The world reorganizes around those who remember. Stillness isn't the end of the story. It's the punctuation that gives every sentence meaning. Without the pause, language is noise. Without stillness, life is motion without message. So let this be your offering. A life lived as a quiet poem in motion, a breath extended to the world saying, "May all beings remember who they are." And if you forget, as all humans do, the path back is always the same. Pause, breathe, notice. The door never closes. The sky is never gone. The field is always listening for the sound of your stillness. Before we close, take a moment to realize that what you've heard isn't theory, it's permission. You were meant to hold still today so that you could feel what the field has been whispering. You are already aligned. The practice now is not to remember the words, but to let the words remember you. So wherever you are seated, standing, lying down, pause everything for a few seconds. Gently close your eyes if you can. Let your body rest in its own gravity. We'll take 3 coherent breaths together, not to fix, but to remember. First breath, inhale slowly through the nose. Feel the air enter as light, widening the chest, softening the edges of thought. Hold it briefly at the top, not as tension, but as reverence. Exhale through the mouth, letting the day's noise leave with the air. The first breath is for arrival. Second breath, inhale again, this time sensing the heart's rhythm aligning with the flow of breath. Feel how your chest expands with trust, not control. Hold gently, exhale, releasing every expectation of how life should be. The second breath is for alignment. Third breath, inhale deeply, feeling the body, the field, and the vast stillness merge. You're not drawing air into lungs, you're drawing awareness into existence. Hold for a heartbeat. Exhale slowly, sending coherence outward in silent offering. The third breath is for transmission. Now, in the quiet that follows, notice how reality listens. The room, the sounds, even the space around your skin seems softer. This isn't imagination, it's resonance. You've shifted from thinking about stillness to embodying it. Choose one word now, a frequency that represents what you wish to live from. It might be peace, trust, clarity, love, or something uniquely yours. Whatever arises first, that's the right one. Whisper it inwardly. Then say aloud, softly but with conviction, I choose to, your word as the observer. Let the sentence vibrate through your chest. It's not an affirmation, it's an encoding. You're giving the field new coordinates to mirror. You're saying, I'm done reacting, I'm ready to resonate. Stay here for a few seconds longer. Feel what it's like to exist without reaching for the next moment. This stillness is what every spiritual text, every quantum insight, every breath practice was pointing toward. The place where creation and awareness are indistinguishable. When you open your eyes, let them rest gently on your surroundings. Don't rush. You'll notice the light falling differently, as though the world itself has exhaled with you. It has. The field moves with you now because you've remembered its language. Stillness, coherence, breath. Carry this practice forward in small ways. 3 conscious breaths before a conversation. 1 pause before a reply. A silent declaration of your chosen word each morning. These rituals aren't tasks. They're tuning forks. They keep your signal clear when the world becomes loud. And as you do this, you'll begin to notice something subtle but astonishing. Life starts organizing itself around your steadiness. People sense safety near you. Opportunities align without struggle. Even challenges seem choreographed to deepen your coherence rather than test it. This isn't superstition, it's the observer effect in motion. Remember, each conscious breath is an act of creation. Each moment of stillness is a statement to the field. I remember who I am. If this journey has resonated, let this be your ritual conclusion. Place a hand over your heart, breathe once more, and silently thank your own awareness for listening. Then, with that same gentle breath, share this frequency forward. Subscribe not just to this channel, but to this field of coherence. Every person who joins amplifies the collective rhythm of remembrance. You're not consuming content, you're strengthening a signal that calls others home to themselves. When you leave this space, do so slowly, like stepping from sacred ground, because you are. Stillness is sacred ground, and it travels with you. So breathe, not to escape, but to embody, not to control, but to create, not to wait for peace, but to become it. You were meant to hold still today, and in doing so, you've already won.